Hello, I'm Darren again. Today's topic comes from many different questions in and around the same subject. What are the common reactions, what are the common behaviours of a narcissistic person whenever their tactics no longer work? Whenever you're on to them, whenever they've been exposed, one way or another. What happens when a narcissistic person feels they no longer have the control over someone that they once had? So if you like this video, if you find it interesting or helpful, please consider subscribing to my channel. But just as a reminder, this video is not a substitute for support from a mental health professional, nor is it a tool to be used to diagnose someone. So first of all, narcissism can be characterized by a sense of entitlement. There's being self-absorbed, being disagreeable, and either being highly sensitive or highly resistant to criticism. They can be exploitative, manipulative, and they lack empathy. And yes, let's be honest, we can all be a little bit like that from time to time. But with narcissism, with pathological narcissism, what we see is these behaviors are consistent, they are persistent, they are pervasive, they are constant. So what happens when someone is on to them, someone figures them out, is a reasonable question to ask, given that they can be quite vindictive. Sometimes we've no idea how they might react. But if you've been in a relationship with someone who's narcissistic now, whether that was a partnership, a friendship, or perhaps you were raised in a narcissistic family, you have a fair idea they are not going to react well once they feel they can no longer control you. So to understand that, remember that narcissistic people tend to value themselves based on how others admire them and pander to them. They have a very poor sense of self and very poor insight. They need attention and validation, and if others will not give it to them voluntarily or to sometimes the unreasonable standards that they demand, they will manipulate, coerce, bully, guilt trip, and shame in order to get it. They live in an internal world full of envy and shame. And the strange thing is, they tend to act in very shameful ways in order to escape that feeling of shame. And those behaviours, things like devaluing, rejecting, punishing, cheating, scorning, and so on, these are often the very things that drive people away. So some of the common ways in which they behave whenever they do lose control over someone is, first of all, believe it or not, they might actually apologize. They might actually say they're sorry. And the thing is, they probably are, but not necessarily sorry for the things they've done or for the pain they've caused. More often than not, they are sorry for the consequences that they now face. They are sorry that they're being abandoned. They are sorry that others can now see them as they really are. Or there may be an apology, but it comes with some kind of excuse, such as, it's not me, it's my anxiety, I can't help it, it's my illness, it's not my fault, it's my addiction. Or there may be a caveat of some kind like, I am sorry, but after all, you did say something 10 years ago that I found quite offensive. But even if you do get an apology, and even if it does sound very sincere, they tend to last but a moment, a minute, a day, a week even. They generally go back to doing the same things again. The very highly skilled ones just find a different way of doing the same thing. Or it might not necessarily be an apology. It might sound like they're trying to reason with you. So you imagine someone's going grey rock, they're just giving one-word answers, or maybe someone's just gone no contact, they're not responding. They may get a text or an email, and it'll usually go along the lines of, I've no idea what I've done to hurt you, but I'll always love you. Following that, you'll get a lot of word salad, and within that word salad, there will be a veiled threat which could be summed up as, and I'm going to let other people know what you're like. By the way, I'll always love you. But if you do get a message like that, or if you do get an apology, pleading, tears, maybe you're considering giving them another chance. Well, I'm not going to talk you out of it, but what I will ask you to think about is to draw on your experience. How many apologies were there in the past? Now, there might not have been that many, but how many were there? And following the apology, the bad behavior changed. If it didn't change, why do you think it will this time? The second common behavior is, if a narcissist gets caught out, they're generally never going to admit the truth. Now, if you think about it, if they don't admit their own errors, misjudgments, mistakes, their limits even to themselves, they're certainly not going to admit their toxic behavior to you or to anyone else. Instead, there's normally a lot of false accusations, twist things you've said or done, claim that you did or said things you never did or said. Deliberately, and the key word being deliberately, misinterpret you and your intentions. And some are very good at this, and if you've been in a long-term relationship with someone like this, they've had a long time to fine-tune their manipulation and their gaslighting tactics. You might even find yourself doubting yourself, especially if it seems like others are believing them. And covert narcissists are particularly good at being very passive-aggressive while acting humbly and contrite. Thirdly, following a breakup, now if they hadn't isolated you from your friends, from your family, from your colleagues, then maybe they're going to start contacting them, and it'll usually be something along the lines of, I'm really concerned about them, I'm really concerned about this person, I haven't heard from them in a long time, I'm worried about them. Or if you were part of a club or a group or whatever, they may suddenly find that they have an interest in it. They'll start turning up, showing up, they'll start getting involved in that sport or that group or whatever it is and start mixing with your friends there. They may even contact your friends, your family, invite them over to their place or go and visit them. Show that they're really decent people. They're not like how you may have been painting them out to be. And this serves quite a few purposes. It's to turn their victim's social circle into their flying monkeys, their agents to snoop, to stalk for them, to feed them information. It's also a way of intimidating the victim, letting the victim know they're not quite safe yet, they are still there. It also serves to try and control how other people see them, as well as how other people are seeing the victim. By its nature, narcissism is very destructive. It tends to destroy things from the inside, and when it can no longer do that, it tries to destroy it from the outside. Number 4, they will project onto their victim. They generally try to emotionally manipulate their victims into taking responsibility for their actions, for their bad behavior. Following a breakup of some kind now, whether that's a friendship or a romantic relationship or whatever, all that pain, guilt and shame is now being dumped onto the victim. And they will do whatever they have to do to try and manipulate the victim's emotional side so that they will feel pity and sympathy for them. My goodness, can they be persistent? They keep on, pleading, crying, begging, being ill, being angry until the victim apologizes for how they feel at how they were treated. Even apologize for not being able to put up with the crap that they had to go through. The expression that I often use is, they wet the bed and blame the blanket. Common behavior number 5. They are nasty and they are vindictive. How dare you see through them? How dare you no longer want to put up with their nonsense? Don't forget, narcissistic people feel very entitled, which usually means their victim deserves it, and they can become consumed. Some can become violent, some may damage property, they may spread vicious rumors, that they may deliberately withhold support, resources, information, anything at all that they believe will allow them to re-establish some sense of power and control over their victim. One way or another, it's almost like they think they have to teach their victims a lesson. Lastly, number 6. If they know they can't trick, manipulate, or threaten anymore, they'll try to create a trauma bond. Now, this can look like a pattern of toxic behavior that is, first of all, it's normal for the narcissist, but for the victim, it becomes normalized. And it could look like maybe the victim believes that they are dependent somehow on that narcissistic person who is abusing them. Maybe they're financially dependent. Maybe they have kids together. There has to be a level of contact. Perhaps that person can't leave because their abuser is dependent on them. Perhaps there's an illness or a physical condition. Now, if the bond wasn't there before, that trauma bond wasn't there before, they may try to create one. If it was there, they'll try to strengthen it somehow. Use everything within their means to make it really difficult for the victim to assert any kind of autonomy or to leave. So they're just a few of the common characteristics, some of the common behaviors of narcissistic people whenever they feel they are losing control over someone. Now, as always, there's a lot more I haven't added. If you want to add that, by all means, please feel free to use the comment box below there. There are some interesting conversations starting around these videos. Now, if you like this video, if you find it interesting or helpful, please consider subscribing to my channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.